Hi guys, hope all is well. Obviously, my name is Gabe and I'm here to give my final tribal intro speech. This has been such a whirlwind of an adventure and I'm so glad I went through with it and you guys were all there with me. But let's get this going. So, first and foremost, I know I talk a lot. This is going to be a long speech, so I'm trying to get you guys a bit more engaged and I made a presentation just for you guys. So, let's go. So, first and foremost, these are the contents that I'm going to go through and let's go one by one. First with achievements. So, this is a summary of everything. So, I've never received a vote and I went through this whole game 17 rounds without receiving a single vote against me, which I do believe is impressive. Next, I earned myself a safety without power, which was good to the pre-merge, and I never used it at all. The reason why I never used it or never sent it away, never made a big move with it, was that I didn't want to expose my threat level first and foremost. I also never wanted to put my allies in danger or show my cards that I was into certain allies or not into certain other people. The most important thing for me about the safety without power wasn't me having it, but was that other people didn't have it. And for the most part, I also didn't want to tell people I had it because I didn't want people to feel the need to blindside me. Moving on. Third one is me initiating a number of alliances and group chats without creating them myself. Now, I do name them so people know I'm into them, but at the same time, I wasn't the one to actually create them, and thus hopefully most people wouldn't associate me to be the center of the fold in them. And we'll get to the number of alliances later on. Now moving on. Everyone knows I won 5 immunities, which yes is impressive and everything, but it's not the whole game. However, I do feel like certain immunities were worth more than others. So, for instance, the touchy subjects one was important because one, my name was thrust around. I possibly could have received votes or something. I still think Travis gets idled out, but we never know. But more importantly, also decently importantly, is that it was the touchy subjects one, which showed that I had a great level of understanding of the game, what was ongoing. I believe I scored 19 out of 25 versus other people who mostly scored 16. But anyways, next one was the final 7 1, where it was the Jackbox one and Eric went home. So we entered the third round with Eric and me being tied. During that game, it was espionage where people would send in their ups and downs, likes and dislikes, without knowing, with showing them before you even needed to show them. So I would wait. So I had a bit of a lead over Eric at one point, and on purpose waited to see his answer, and I would do the same thing as his. On purpose, I didn't need to win it. I just needed Eric to lose it. So that way, we could take him out. And no one, I don't believe anyone noticed what I had done. Finally, one of the more important ones where it really shifted my dynamics from possibly the bottom to the top was the final five immunity. This one ensured that I could pull the strings, and this goes to point number 5 as well, that I could pull the strings to take Colin out. I went up to AJ, told him, hey, I know Colin has burned you in the past. He has a final two with me, and I feel like he burned me with the Jake vote, and I feel like he has a final two deal with you as well. Without me saying that last part, he told me that he had one as well. It still takes him a while because AJ knows that Colin would have likely possibly taken him far, whereas I felt like I was the fourth placer. But in the case of a final two, it was still important for AJ to go along with me. I felt like. Anyways, I also go up to Cyrus literally a minute before tribal, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. That's late, and I also convinced him. And by the way, that full blown hour beforehand, I also was spending all the time with AJ. Anyways, to finally get him to agree roughly at the last minute. So I did use my influence there to turn things around in my favor and get the majority of the credit for that move. Finally, I actually, what's interesting stat, I always voted with the majority of people of every tribal I went to where I had a vote. Now, Travis is the only questionable one since an idol was played, so I vote for Eric and Eric gets an idol played. So if you don't want to count that, sure. But I actually did vote for majority every single time. Finally, is that I earned myself not to be only immune at 3 tribals. I won every tribal challenge, and I believe truly that 3 quarters of them I had a major part in it, or at least some significant part. So, anyways, I literally only went to the fake merges and the post merge ones. I had 5 immunities, so that leaves 3. And not only that, the first 2 I could have saved without powered if I really felt like I needed to, which I simply didn't and wanted to keep my threat at bay. Anyways, that's the achievements, and let's get things going. So, next up is the breaking down of survivor games. So this is really important to understand where I'm coming from in terms of the moves I made and why I believe my game was really great for this game format that we had. So usually people say physical, social, strategic. I feel like there are certain things that are just too interchangeable. So for instance, sometimes you could say, oh, it's sociable to know who to target, or you could say it's strategic. Is it strategic to know the plan and then pull it off, or is it social to execute, whatever? So I want to change it up. I want to say it's safety, awareness, and influence, which has a bit of everything of the previous categories mentioned. So let's start with safety. So safety is just the idea to get to the end, which means just don't get voted out. You can receive votes, maybe worst case scenario, just don't get voted out. So first line of defense, the first thing that happens in a round is the challenge and immunity, tribal, individual, whatever, even advantages. But anyways, so you guys all know that I put in the 5 immunity wins and the tribal immunity wins as well as the safety without power. So you know I had that first line of defense, but I didn't rely on that first line of defense either. That just happened to be good enough to pass me through. I still had the next line of defense, which is people that were pro me, that were willing to protect me and use their influence to save me in their respective rounds. Later on, I will talk about how in the swap Tony was willing to play an idol on me and how people were just doing other things. Later on, if that doesn't work, if people don't want to protect you specifically, then turning it around where others are targeted instead of you. So they're targeted for multiple reasons. Maybe they're inactive, maybe they're too big of threats, maybe they're shifty, maybe it's that they are too chaotic in some way or just want to make big moves, whatever. Um, so that's how I feel like the safety aspect works. And there were times where, for instance, Eric goes home over me because Eric is a bigger threat rather than necessarily people protecting me. If that was a third line of defense needed, which I don't know if it was, but we shall see. Next up is awareness. So awareness is the idea of knowing the consequences of your actions. And I think this is what I really, really strived for the most. I think people underestimate how much I had in this. So obviously that's related to receiving information and giving it out, which is a part, like touchy subjects shows that I had great awareness. But I also knew the timings of things. So for instance, I do think Colin could have changed things up, um, took Tony out at 6 if he wanted to, and then take Jake out at 5. He could have definitely done so. I didn't do certain big moves, not because I didn't want to or something, but because I knew the consequences of directions where I didn't want to overexpose myself, be too greedy or something. So anyways, that was awareness in general. Moving on, we have influence, where that's the idea of maneuvering through the game, through physical, social, and strategic, by the way. But whatever you do, it affects who gets voted out, or who bonds together, or who fractures from each other. Now you see that thanks to your own actions. Now you see that in different ways. So for instance, I was the person that told Eric, hey, why don't we bring in AJ in the vote? He only has Travis in line, because at the time I wanted them to work together. Or later on, I was the one that went up to Cyrus Beer last minute and told him, hey, Colin has been in trying to has done certain actions against you, and we need to take him out, essentially. Moving down. This game, for the sake of it, the biggest thing about this is the adaptability factor. It's not a regular game. We had 5 different tribals, 7 advantages, a late merge, and thus I really feel like I usually play a very faction-based game and not as much running around. But it did create a very fluid game, and I was not the only one who was fluid. But I really think I succeeded in it. It created voting blocks of probably duos and single people in a merge of 9, which I've never had such a late merge. But it did also guarantee me making it in a way where I had less blood on my hands coming into merge. But sadly, due to my lack of tribals, I was coming in with people who had not tested I had not tested bonds yet necessarily, but I still did as much as I could to make people feel good with me, and I still made it here despite the lack of bonds that people had with me in inverted commas through tribals. I had them in other various ways instead. So finally, it's the self-preservation. So I told you how people could get targeted. So this is how I want to present myself and what I seek in allies as well: stability, effectivity, and loyalty. These are ways where people know that they don't need to carry me around. They know I'm going to be a straight shooter with them, dynamic, not stale, but still dynamic enough to stay confounded and not and not completely chaotic. But anyways, loyalty was a big factor to me in the individual sense as well. But anyways, next up is how I wanted the tribe to perceive me. I just wanted to be useful for challenges and again social assets, which everyone knows that that's the way to perform. But I really wanted to go above and beyond and give all the effort I could where I physically could. Remember, this is a game that runs at my 4 a.m. Like this is insane for me to do. Usually games are at my 2 a.m., which is also insane. But this carries the cake when it comes to these orgs. Where this is why it took this long to actually play animation. To be quite honest. Next up is being a confidant of information. This is where I really didn't want to make any one of the final 6 felt betrayed by me as much as possible. Now, these were 4 people I thought specifically would not let me go before final 6. So these were like Tony, Colin, Jake, Sam, to be quite honest. There are other people, and I just put in actions on purpose. One of them, for instance, was the Brady vote out. Yes, I did tell Jake about it. And I knew that he wasn't going to do anything. Now, don't get me wrong, I made him almost swear about it, that he wouldn't do anything about it. But I really felt like I did not want to betray him, and I wanted him to know that I had his best interest out for him and wanted to loop him in. Next up is being a middle person and tying myself up to individuals that supported me and for me to support them. I wanted equal partnerships where people didn't outrightly rely on me, but neither vice versa, but we could help build each other. Um, People saw me as a middle person. I'm not going to deny that. I did it decently subtle to some degree, but obviously people knew. But another part of it was I didn't feel like there were outrightly 2 factions. Like I said, it was a very fluid game. However, I was someone that was more willing to be flexible and do compromises, which I don't think most people like. Most people were a bit more headstrong in their regards because I just feel like they saw certain things in their point of view that must happen at their 987, whereas I was willing to change certain orders around need be. And I always told certain people, am I having tunnel vision right now? Like, should we change it up? Is there something that I'm being too central focused on? And yeah, I wanted people to know that I was seeking certain permissions to do it. They were included in my plans. I wasn't giving out orders. That we were a dynamic, had a dynamic relationship together. I really wanted them included. Next up is the timeline, and I know this is taking a long time now, but this is where things get more in depth, and this is the final thing as far as I know. So thank you for sticking around this long. So first off, we have the Cartman tribe. As you can see, we start off with tribe of 5, and to be quite honest, this was quite a good tribe to start off with. I thought it was going to be worse, but Kenzie, she was someone that was very chill. Sadly, she was on vacation, and also she DQ'd in a certain challenge, but I didn't want Kenzie to go outrightly. I actually fought as much as I could in the competitions, so we don't get into any sticky messes. Moving on, there was just the idea that everyone else was a morning person, in Sam, Cyrus, and Jake. So they all wanted, which was great for us to bond, and they all wanted an alliance of 3. I was the first and only person to suggest a 4-person alliance instead, because I didn't want anyone to be outrightly neglected, feel ignored, go into a swap and be like, oh, we never made an alliance or something, and just jump ship. So I told each and every one of them, what if we did a 4-person alliance instead? They all wanted 3s, and they all wanted to include me and Jake, as far as I know. Whew, okay, and this is also where Uncle Fuckers exists, where Sam creates the alliance. Again, this showed also Sam was very willing to make a compromise, because he was the first very much on board about a 4-person tribe, whereas to the others, alliance, whereas the others I needed to push a bit and discuss more. Also, as you can see, there's over there my submission of the safety without power, the superhero comp, which earned me the safety without power. But anyways, I did not realize that an idol was out because I saw the message of the reward challenge one per tribe and just assumed idols would be out from there. Hence, why I hadn't circled and did not have a good chance at trying for the idols until the next day, where it was just too late. Anyways, moving on, we had the Tolkien tribe. So for the Tolkien tribe, we had a situation where Tony had picked me, and I was ecstatic that he picked me, and I ended up picking Colin. I wanted to pick Tyler. Tyler was someone that I had beef with in a previous game, and I wanted to smooth it over. And we hashed it out. We're all good in my eyes. But I really wanted to make sure that we were, as well as later on we did. I chose Colin instead, and to be quite honest, I actually am very glad I did so. He was someone that was severely underrated as a player. I think he was, to be quite honest, the second best player of this season, aside from Tony, and arguably might even beat Tony. He was someone that was very strategic, humble, very easy to connect with, and just a hoot of a guy. Just amazing. We ended up being in a 2-2-1-1 situation. All tribes were like this. So it really felt like a Mexican standoff, given none of us were inactive and everything. I did want Brady out because I did feel like she was someone that was getting really close with the guys, not particularly gaming with me, and giving some like pauses with me. And yeah, but I still knew I couldn't push the envelope too hard. There was such a thing of the safety, information, and influence, awareness, if you will. So essentially, for a while I thought Brady was the safest, but not necessarily the most influential things. Eventually, I did feel like Colin took this role, and I think it was great as well because Tony later on had revealed that there was a, and Frank as well, that there was a three-person alliance of Tony, Frank, and Colin, and Brady would have been the first one gone, not me. But even if it weren't the case, Tony was willing to play an idol on me, which around this time, after it happens, we go to the next slide, where the fake merge occurs, everyone's together, and Tony tells me about this idea of him having an idol, and I tell him back that I had the safest without power. From here as well, we come, meet up, and I realize that there is the Cyrus versus Sam tension, which sucks because this ended up giving those two, Kenzie, who's hospitalized, going against each other, and these are three from my OG tribe. This was terrible for me. So, anyways, to move on from this, I had to see what could happen to change things up. Luckily, Tony did it for me. Tony, Colin, and Eric apparently had made this move to take Brady out because Brady was someone that was very in with a lot of guys, and I think Tony realized that I was someone that would easily get scooped up into this plan. I also told Tony, hey, if you need another guy, I'm confident that we can get Sam in. I also looped Jake in on purpose, not to betray his trust, because I really thought he was someone that will take me to final six, if not beyond, and that was really important for me to get to the end game. Next up. And sadly, once again, like the Brady boot happens, but there was not enough time to change things around to consider other possibilities aside from Kenzie. But I will say I do think it benefited me that the big move happened and I had enough time to go a bit more passive after it. Next up is the Tauri tribe. This one was also a bit of a mess, similar to my previous Tolkien tribe. So here we had AJ and Frank, who did not vote with us. They were not aware of the situation. But also, it created these scenarios where people wanted their own factions. Where the very first round, I felt like my name and Frank's name got popped off because Eric probably was willing to let me go to some degree. But I changed things around, and then Cyrus, Frank, and Eric made their own factions, where I really felt like Colin, once again, was at top and center, and I really felt really close to him. And yeah, so I was very great, felt great about that. This also was a time where I really expanded my relationship with AJ because I knew Travis was the only person AJ had a connection with after Tyler was voted out. So yeah, worth mentioning as well in the fake merge, that was the only time I ever had a chance to talk with Tyler and Hunter. So I really made use of my time and I feel like I'm glad I did because that was the only time I could get to know them, just in case we end up meeting at merge or something. But at the very least, I had some time to play with them. Over here, as you guys can see, I really felt that I was safe for a couple of rounds, but I'm also glad we didn't get to go. This is also where Cyrus gives away his idol, and I didn't do the same with the safety without power because see how Cyrus got linked and got considered as just a follower. I didn't want the same thing to happen to me or anywhere close. Next up, we finally merge, and this is where more alliances happen. Remember, alliances, I tell people such as Eric and Jake would be a great alliance to happen, and things like that. And then Eric is the one to create it, or AJ is the one to create it, stuff like that. Similar here, AJ and Colin create an alliance where both of them said, oh, it would be great for us to get together, and AJ is the one to create it, and I'm the one to name it. The Frank boot was something that, ironically, me and Frank were not vibing until the very last 3 rounds we had together when we realized Eric was pitting us against together for a while. I was fine to let Frank go. I really wish he did not go the way he did, where to be quite honest, Cyrus was cheering him off. So, anyways, next up was the touch subjects, and you all know that I was most likely to get killed. Next, voted out, tied with Eric, and talks the most, tied with Cyrus. Not the best, but was the perfect moment to start building myself up. I want touchy subjects, and that was where the explosion happens, where Colin idles out Travis. From here, at the very least, that's over, and Travis is gone, and I didn't hate Travis, but I felt like he could probably take me out since we literally met at merge. Next up was my Jackbox win, which I already explained how I did it, and I really felt like I end up being the cause that Eric goes home. He was going to go home regardless, but I was the one to ensure his first line of safety was out of the way, and then his second line and third line were out the door on their own. And even if the hosts were not around, I would still have less points than him, thus I win immunity for the sake of it. Next up, this is where the final six occurs. Tony is not around, and this is where things shift away from me. Jake is pounded out the way, and these did not go to my plans. I was willing to go to a final three where I was equal to others. And I just felt like I could win against Cyrus. But other people could as well. So I wanted that spot not to be taken away from me because I felt like I could be shot at 4. Anyways, once things don't go my way, I change things up and take Colin out. I already explained how I did this earlier on, so you don't need to hear it again. But finally, I did so and not care about Tony coming in because I knew, like, once we knew that he was playing an LRG, I knew they had battle backs in the pre-merge, and I just could not see Tony just outrightly quitting and not trying to perform in the Edge of Extinction or whatever it was. So I knew I could wait until Final Four to take out Tony, and that was it. So finally, that is the end. I know it was a huge, huge, huge speech. I am very, very sorry to give you such a thing, but feel free to give me Q&A. Thank you so, so much to anyone who listened to me, and that's it. Wish me luck, and I'm going to need it. Thank you so much. Feel free to give me, and that's it. See you guys. Bye.